Samsung Unpacked is upon us, and Larry Dignan is here with us now to break everything down. Larry, what we're hearing, of course, lots of rumors, lots of things being said out there, what we can expect and what to come from this event. So let's just dive right in with the big story here revolving around the official reveal of the Galaxy Note 10. So, big question here. Are we really going to pay a premium, do you think, for a 5G Note 10 Plus?
Well, this is sort of the conundrum I have with all these devices that are coming out now. They're all coming out. They're usually 4G with a premium priced 5G. So the Galaxy Note launches and it's going to come out. There'll be three flavors. There'll be the Samsung Galaxy S10, an S10 Plus, and an S10 Plus with 5G. And the way this has typically worked out, and it's worked out with the Galaxy S10 line too, is that the 5G premium carries a big price tag. And the problem I have with the whole thing is like, all right, so you're asking me to spend $1,100 to $1,200 on the phone, and then I've got to pay a premium to get a device that will, offer me a little future proofing, say for a year. It's kind of a scam. Right? Because they should just throw that in as 5G capable from the beginning. And that way, when I buy a device, I don't really have to worry about, it being stuck on a pokey network a year from now. So that's why we're seeing this malaise in the smartphone industry, because, are you really going to buy the next iPhone if it's all just 4G? No, because you're going to want the faster network. And it's the same thing with the Galaxy line. So they keep upselling this. So the thing to really watch for is just how much are you going to have to pay extra to get a 5G capable device? And for my personal buying, I'm in line for an upgrade, and, if it's not 5G capable, I'm probably not doing it. I mean, I might find some mid-tier device in the middle somewhere to last a year or just stretch out what I have. So this is sort of the buying calculus everyone has. And I just think smartphone makers would make it a lot easier if 5G wasn't some premium price thing. Because I don't know what the components cost per se, but they can't cost that much more.
Yeah, so why, Larry, that's the question. Why would you buy the current line when 5G networks? So we're talking about at least a 2020 event here.
Yeah, I mean, 5G is supposed to be everywhere in 2020, basically. And 5G hasn't quite, it's not really even here yet for the most part. But that's why you're seeing smartphone devices not take off per se this year, because everybody's kind of just waiting. And that's what Samsung's walking into, right? They're walking into the sort of buzzsaw. The good news for Samsung is they do have 5G devices, and Apple probably won't. And there are a lot of other vendors that don't either. So, Samsung has some ability to get ahead of this, but I really think it comes down to the pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. They are a little out ahead with it, but that's the big concern and what so many people, of course, are talking about. Switching gears a little bit, will DeX, do you think the third version finally make the Note 10 maybe a desktop replacement?
Yeah, so Samsung has this thing called DeX, which basically takes your phone, uses the compute on it and the memory and all that, and basically turns into a PC. And the first year they did it, it was interesting. I was kind of into it, but then it was a little clunky. The second iteration of it was pretty strong. But, aside from testing it out here and there, I wasn't really on the bandwagon. So this year, it's kind of like, all right, so what are they going to do to get me, actually considering this as a desktop replacement? Like, they keep improving it every year. And I think at the Note launch, they'll probably outline some more things along those lines. It's just a question of, what will it take to get people on board? And I don't really know. I mean, I don't know, it works with Microsoft Office apps. It works with a lot of work apps now. And it'll kind of depend on, the other wild card here is that Microsoft and Samsung, they'll be outlining, a little more strides in their partnership. So maybe there's something there that'll make DeX do better. But it's just an interesting thing to watch because it's good technology. It makes a lot of sense, but there's sort of a habitual problem with it in that, adoption is going to be very slow.
Yeah, and you would think, Larry, with the amount of remote workers now and knowing people are going to be hiring so many more of those in the future, that it would have caught on more by now.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the business person, it makes a lot of sense if you could only take a phone and not your laptop too. And that would be great, but I don't know if companies are set up for it yet. And that's always the wild card, right? So it's a question of what can they do to make that easier? Like, can they make it work with the Mac better? That would be something. So yeah, it's something I'm sure they'll improve it, but it's just about does it improve enough to capture a wide range of business use.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Hopping back and forth here a little bit, going back with the phones, in terms of, is this the end of an era here? Are we ditching the headphone jack? Are we ready to, and potentially the micro SD card? What do you think?
Well, Samsung is, I guess they're limiting the micro SD card in certain areas, and they're getting rid of the headphone jack altogether, which, the headphone jacks is one of those things. It's an old technology. It works really well. And there are times where you want to be tethered, especially on conference calls. Like in my house, I got Wi-Fi calling. You got the mobile network, which is so here and there. And then you toss in a Bluetooth thing and the connection will drop. There's just too many airwaves connecting to make the call any quality. And so as a result, it's nice to have a headset to plug in. And, they're getting rid of that. And, they'll give you, just like Apple, they'll give you yet another dongle to carry around. So is that a deal breaker? Probably not. The SD card, I think the lower model won't have it. And the higher models will. Maybe that's an okay trade-off. But, remember a year ago, Samsung was talking about, how you can carry a terabyte of data in your pocket. And that was because the memory would be 512 gig, and then you get an SD card to get you the rest of the way. And, if you take away the SD card, that whole line goes away. So, the micro SD card, it's a nice to have. And I think for a lot of people, it matters. So we'll see if Samsung, if taking away that in certain models has an impact or not. But it's another thing to kind of get you that price thing. It's another upsell tool. And I don't know, it seems like we're getting nickel and dime some places.
Yeah, it most certainly does. And just the idea of another dongle. I know you said in your writing there is, does the world really need another dongle? It's like, got to be a better way here. All right. So, do you think, Larry, with knowing what's going on here and hearing different things, do you think the real competition for the Note 10, the Note 9?
Yeah, I think that's if you're in Samsung's universe and you like the Note, I think that's sort of the big question. I know it's my question, right? Because I'm looking at a Note 10 and then I'm also looking at the Note 9, and I don't think the changes are all that dramatic between the two. And if I roll out the 5G Note 10, then the Note 9 looks like it's going to be a value. So I think a lot of people are going to look at the Note 9 as probably a competitor to the Note 10, because I don't think the advances in the S Pen are very similar. There's not, the Note 10 feels very incremental in terms of upgrades. So that usually means the lower model becomes more appealing from a value perspective, right? So say the Note 9, you can get it for, I don't know, $600, $700. That may be a good compromise. And then that's a nice way to punt for a year and a half until 5G comes online and for real. So I think that's going to be the biggest competitor. Like, let's face it, if you're using Samsung phones, the people that switch back and forth from Apple to Samsung, you could probably count them on one hand. It's just not many, right? So you're either an Apple person or you're a Samsung/Android person. And so I think the competition becomes those other Android devices. And then if you dig the S Pen and taking notes, then the Note 9 really becomes the primary competition.
Yeah, no doubt, Larry, there will be a lot of deals too on the Note 9. So that will, be of appeal, I think, to some buyers. So, we know what happened, of course, with the Galaxy Fold and re-release expected later this year. So do you think that the Note 10 will give Samsung that smartphone boost that they're needing? Where does that fit into this?
I think the jury's really out on that. Like, I know executives on Samsung's second quarter earnings call, they were talking about, how they expected Note 10 to have the most volume of any previous Note. But where it gets tricky is they're also probably going to tease the Galaxy Fold, right? Because that one launched, got in reviewers' hands, and then the screen, went buggy and got a little crazy. And they're going to tease that, and then they're going to launch it again in September. So I think the Galaxy Fold takes a lot of the wind out of the Note's sales in a lot of ways. Now, even though there's a question about whether the Fold works, I know that's my big question. I won't be in any rush to get that thing, but it's going to take away, some of the pop that the Note would have had. So the cadence here with Samsung's a little off, but really they're really two device categories that they're almost not comparable in a lot of ways. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm thinking the Note 10 is not going to be not going to be this gangbuster thing for smartphones, and certainly not Samsung's smartphone business. I think their sweet spot's going to be more in the mid market. And the other thing to watch is just the trade war, like just like the U.S. has a trade war with China, South Korea has a trade war with Japan, and there's a lot of components in smartphones that go between those two countries. So Samsung's getting hit, from a lot of different directions here. And, the Note 10 would really have to be a big hit to really move Samsung's financials.
Yeah, just so many moving parts in the smartphone industry in general, Larry. Well, we know you're going to be following Samsung Unpacked closely and have much more coming up for us later. So make sure you stay with ZDNet for all the latest from Samsung Unpacked 2019.